Dr. Vexthera had supervised over 3,000 psychological evaluations in her distinguished career as the Galactic Council's chief xenopsychologist. Her six-eyed compound vision had analyzed the mental patterns of every known sentient species, but the humans sitting across from her in the sterile white chamber presented an unprecedented challenge. Subject 247H, known as Dr. Rebecca Torres, sat calmly in the center of the isolation assessment chamber, a room designed to break down the psychological barriers of even the most resilient minds. The chamber's walls displayed a constantly shifting array of complex mathematical equations, philosophical paradoxes, and abstract pattern sequences that had driven lesser intellects to madness within hours. "Begin Phase 1, Dr. Vexthera commanded through the intercom, her mandibles clicking with anticipation. The chamber's environmental controls activated, cycling through extreme temperature variations, gravitational fluctuations, and sensory deprivation sequences. Most species broke within the first hour, begging to be released as their minds struggled to process the deliberate chaos. Rebecca simply closed her eyes and began to meditate. Through the observation deck's reinforced viewport, Dr. Vexthera watched alongside her research team, Dr. Krilzon, a cybernetically enhanced synthery with quantum processing implants, and Professor Yathal, an ancient crystalline being whose crystalline matrix had accumulated 12 centuries of pure logic. "Fascinating," Dr. Krilzon commented, his mechanical eye focusing on Rebecca's vitals. "Her stress hormones are actually decreasing. This should be impossible under these conditions. Perhaps the human is simply too primitive to understand the complexity of the stimuli," Professor Yathal suggested, his crystalline form pulsing with cool blue light. Dr. Vexthera remained skeptical. Humans had recently joined the Galactic Council after displaying troubling levels of adaptability and problem-solving skills. This test was designed to measure their true psychological limits, to understand what made Deathworlders tick. "Initiate Phase 2, she ordered. The chamber's walls began displaying the Zirian theorem, an unsolvable mathematical proof that had confounded galactic scholars for millennia. Quantum computers had burned out attempting to find solutions. The ancient precursor civilization had left it as their final challenge before disappearing into the void. Rebecca opened her eyes, studied the equations for 30 minutes, then stood up and began writing on the wall with her finger. The chamber's smart matter surface recorded her movements, translating them into visible equations. Dr. Krilzon's quantum processors worked frantically. "Impossible. She's actually making progress on the Zirian theorem. Initiate Phase 3 immediately," Dr. Vexthera commanded, panic creeping into her voice. The chamber filled with the madness frequencies, sound patterns that induced temporary insanity in most sentient beings. Combined with holographic projections of cosmic horror and existential dread, the assault was designed to shatter any mind. Rebecca paused in her calculations, looked directly at the observation deck, and smiled. Then she continued working. For 12 hours, the research team watched in growing amazement as Rebecca methodically solved problem after problem. The Zirian theorem fell to her calculations within the first 6 hours. The ancient void cipher patterns, displayed in desperation, took her another 3 hours to decode. By hour 10, she was working on the consciousness paradox, the philosophical question of whether artificial intelligence could achieve true sentience. When the chamber doors finally opened, Rebecca walked out calmly, carrying a sheaf of papers covered in handwritten notes. She handed them to Dr. Vexthera with a slight smile. "Here are the solutions you were looking for," Rebecca said simply. "Though I should mention, you've been approaching most of these problems from the wrong angle entirely." Dr. Vexthera's 6 eyes scanned the papers with growing disbelief. The solutions were elegant, brilliant, and completely correct. Mathematics that had puzzled the galaxy's greatest minds for centuries had been solved with what appeared to be basic human intuition and creativity. How? Dr. Krilzon's voice processor struggled with the question. Rebecca shrugged. You all think in straight lines. Your quantum computers process information sequentially, your crystalline matrices follow logical progressions, your cybernetic implants enhance existing thought patterns. But human minds don't work that way. She tapped her temple. We think in loops, tangents, and creative leaps. We make connections that shouldn't exist. We see patterns in chaos and find order in madness. For billion years of evolution on a death world taught us to think outside the box because inside the box usually meant death. Professor Yathal's crystalline form flickered with confusion. But the psychological pressure, the sensory assault, the existential horror. Oh, that! Rebecca laughed. I've been through graduate school, raised 3 teenagers, and survived Earth's educational system. Your torture chamber was actually pretty relaxing compared to a typical Tuesday. She paused at the door. Next time you want to test human psychological limits, try making us sit through a 4-hour meeting that could have been an email. That might actually break us. Dr. Vexthra stared at the solutions in her hands, realizing that humanity had just revolutionized galactic science during what was supposed to be their psychological breaking point. The Deathworlders hadn't just survived their test. They had used it as a quiet afternoon to solve the galaxy's greatest mysteries. As Rebecca's footsteps echoed down the corridor, Dr. Vexthra made a mental note to never underestimate human resilience again.